Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm happy you can make it. I would like to first wish a happy Chanukah, Freiliche Chanukah to each of you and to your families. Tonight, we are privileged to have Rabbi Jakobson as our keynote speaker, someone who really personifies what this evening is about, bringing darkness to light. He's someone who brings so much light to so many people. Rabbi Jakobson, thank you for being here and for everything that you do, really. Tonight's program is dedicated in memory of a very special person, Shimon Alexander ben Nachman HaKohen, Rabbi Kraft's father-in-law, who passed away just a few weeks ago. And in a few moments, Rabbi Kraft is going to speak a little bit and tell you a little bit about his father-in-law as well. Tonight's program was sponsored through generous sponsorship from Cayman Health Company as well as Margaret Tights. We thank them for their participation in this program and for everything that they do for the broader community. Tonight is Chanukah, and I like to think that Chanukah is really Emet's holiday. That's Emet's Yom Tov. Because at Emet, everything we're about is really what the Chashmonaim were fighting for back over 2,000 years ago. The battle in Chanukah, both the physical battle and the spiritual battle, was very different from any battle that the Jewish people had dealt with before. Different from the Babylonian battles, different from exile, different from the Persian exile and difficulties that we faced in the time of Purim. Chanukah was unique in that really it was a spiritual battle. The Syrian Greeks under Antiochus were not trying to take away our ability to live in the land of Israel, but rather take away our ability to practice the mitzvot. They wanted us to assimilate. They wanted us to become part of the regular society. And what the Chashmonaim were fighting for was a battle for spirituality, a battle for purpose, a battle for finding light in a dark world. And this is why Chanukah is symbolized through, we practice the mitzvah of Chanukah through lighting the menorah, putting a candle, putting a little bit of light into a dark world. And this is what Chanukah is about. At Emet, our whole purpose and mission is to bring light to the world. And in these difficult times during COVID, we've had the opportunity in some ways to bring more light than maybe ever before through a combination of live classes and with social distancing, of course, as well as a tremendous amount of Zoom classes and one-on-one interactions with our amazing staff and their students and all these different connections that they have, as well as our Torah Connect program, which is our partnership between the community members and our students. We've been able to bring so much light in difficult times. And we're excited to be launching 2 initiatives right now on Chanukah that are very excited about. One is our Emet-based Medrash, which is a morning Beit Midrash program for men. This is geared for college students, young professionals, Emet alumni, and the community to learn Torah in the mornings, starting from 7:30 in the morning through 12 o'clock. And this is a program we're very excited about, as well as a new initiative called Emet Match, which is going to be there to help build Torah families, Jewish families in our community as well. The battle of Chanukah is a battle that really didn't end 2,000 years ago, but is a battle that we continue to fight, each and every one of us, throughout this difficult, long exile that we're in for almost 2,000 years. And in many ways, our society today is not so different from what the Chashmonaim were fighting against over 2,000 years ago. And we believe that the only way to fight this darkness is through the true light, which is the light of Torah. And the Jewish pride of Chanukah really needs to be the pride of our relationship to the Torah, our connection to the Torah, which is our true inheritance that has kept us around for so many thousands of years, and Bezrat Hashem will keep us for so many years to come. My prayer to all of you is that we have so much light this coming year, that we're able to bring really what the message of Emet is, which is to light up our souls, to connect ourselves to spirituality, to connect ourselves to our true mission and purpose in life, and at the same time, to spread that light to others, to share this light with others, And sometimes the greatest nachas, the greatest pleasure we have at Emet is when our own students go and make Shavah Brachot and invite their friends over for Shabbos meals and spread the Torah to others as well. And I like to, Achron Chaviv, last but not least, thank the Emet partners and donors who are the light behind Emet. They're the ones who literally light the spark that lets all of this at Emet happen. And we give Hakarat HaTov, gratitude to Hashem that we're able to do everything that we've done this past year. And we look forward this coming year to doing even more at Emet with each and every one of your support. Thank you and happy Chanukah to you.
Chanukah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Chanukah light feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. Walking in the darkness, sorrow all around, looking for some joy, for a hopeful sound. Just when I start to give up, seems there's nothing there. A little glow appears, shining from nowhere. Chanukah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Chanukah light.
Good evening, everybody, and a Freilichen Chanukah to all. It's a joyous night of lights. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everybody a Chag Sameach. It's especially appropriate tonight that I speak about my father-in-law, Shimon Alexander ben Nachman HaKohen, who was nifter approximately 30 days ago. And like the story of Chanukah, his life was really a life of darkness to light. He grew up in Europe, born in 1930 in Slovakia, to a family steeped in Jewish tradition. With the coming of the Nazis, he went into hiding in Hungary, where he was eventually picked up and sent to Auschwitz. Miraculously, he survived the selection. And from Auschwitz, he went to another camp. He went to Mauthausen. And for over a year, he endured the tortures that we all know describe what life was like at that time. Yet the stories that my father-in-law told me about the experience in the camps were really about the kindness that he was able to do. Placed in the kitchen, he was able to find ways to smuggle potatoes and other small items of food out of the kitchen and to give it to other fellow Jews, prisoners, who needed it so badly. And even at the point where he risked his life to do it, punished very severely for such an act, it didn't stop him. It didn't hold him back. And in fact, that's really defines and epitomizes who he was. He was a giver, somebody looking to do for another. Despite the darkness, he was able to find ways to give. He was able to bring out the light. He came to America after the war, and again, his whole approach was that of gratitude. Despite what he went through, his emunah was never shaken. His gratitude to God for everything that was given to him epitomized everything that he said, everything that he did. He appreciated America. He appreciated his family. He appreciated every opportunity. He was somebody who was grateful just to be alive, someone grateful just to have the smallest possession in this world. And Hashem blessed him with a beautiful family that followed in his path, a family dedicated to Torah and mitzvot. He was also blessed with a beautiful voice. He was a chazan, and he used that talent to inspire the hearts of so many. Unfortunately, 13 years ago, he was struck with a debilitating stroke. And despite that stroke, for 13 years, unable to really communicate and speak, one could see on his face a gratitude, a smile. One saw an inner glow from within him that really spoke to the fact that despite his situation, he was able somehow to maintain a grateful disposition. And we witnessed and we watched this. And indeed, his life was a life of finding that light in darkness, no matter what the situation was. And that's the legacy that he bestowed to his family. When we think about this time period of Chanukah, it's a time period where really we're focusing on the gratitude that we have to the Almighty for the miracles which are large and the miracles that are small. All life is a miracle. And indeed, that's what my father lived. My father-in-law lived that life, a life of focusing on all the gifts and all the goodness. When I think about what we're doing now at Emin Outreach, it's nothing less than bringing light into the darkness. And the experience of seeing the glow on the student's face when all of a sudden they realize that life is meaningful, life is purposeful, and they have a way to connect to God and find meaning in what they do. We've been through a time period right now of enormous darkness, and Emmett has been there for our students in order to help them find meaning, to help them find a way to see the good in what they're doing, to not stop growing, but to use the darkness, to use the whole situation we've been through as a way to enhance their connection with Hashem and to further their Jewish thought and Jewish growth. And to that end, we've had countless Zoom classes, whether they be on a large scale, whether it be private meetings. We've done everything we can to meet one-on-one when appropriate, or to have small classes when we could. We've higher level learning. We've had learning for beginners. We've had single gender learning. We've had our higher level Step It Up program. We're in the process now of forming a base medrash for our students to continue their growth. The message of Emet throughout this time has been and is bringing light into the darkness. That's why we started the organization, to bring the Jew closer to his inner glow, to his inner neshama. And when the situation has been difficult over the past months, we haven't stopped with that message. So it's very appropriate tonight. We call this class tonight to bring light into the darkness. That's been the mission of Emet for all these years. And in many ways, that epitomizes who my father-in-law was. He was a person who, despite his situation, chose emunah, chose gratitude, chose goodness, chose helping others, chose to say, how can I strike that candle? How can I light that match to illuminate the darkness of my time? My hope and prayer is that in the merit of tonight's Torah, his neshama should continue to have aliyah v'shamayim. I'm sure that he is watching down on the work of Emet and understanding if he could say one thing to us, it would be, have optimism and faith when things are difficult. Choose to spread that light. Choose goodness. Choose gratitude. Choose to give. Choose to have emunah connect to Hashem in any situation that we're in. And when we can do that, that's truly how we bring light into the darkness of the world, transform the world, and bring the entire world closer to its divine mission of closeness to Hashem.
Feels so right. 8 small flames shining through the night. The darkness starts to lift now. Help is on its way. Hopelessness is starting to fade away. I lift my eyes to heaven, where my help is from. The light now from the flames shines for everyone. Chanukah light burns so bright, lifts my soul, raises my sights. Chanukah light feels so right.
Hi, my name is Yitz Kamenetsky. I am the CEO of Common Health Urgent Care Centers with locations in Fresh Meadows, Crown Heights, and Borough Park. I am the manager at the Fresh Meadows location on 186th Street and Union Turnpike. We opened Common Health to serve the community, our community, for the basic urgent care needs, that people no longer have to go wait for long hours at the emergency rooms, for the non-life-threatening emergencies that happen on a daily basis, be it an ear infection, eye infection, allergies, dog bite, insect bite, suturing, x-rays. We do it all, and we've done it all for the last 7 years for the community. Of course, when the pandemic hit, we were challenged about whether or not we should stay open. And our thought was, we started this for the community, we're gonna stay here for the community. And we fought very hard and long to make sure we are aligned with the right partners in terms of laboratories, suppliers, in terms of getting the rapid tests and the proper PPE for our staff so we can stay open and serve the community. And we've done so with great success. I'm very proud of what we've done. We've helped a lot of people stay safe, be able to know whether or not they are sick and they have to quarantine, etc. But lately we've gone beyond our four walls and we now do testing for schools. We've helped many schools in the neighborhood stay open. We do testing for corporations to make sure that their workplaces are safe. And we continue to do that. We help many home care agencies make sure their patients are safe. We do physicals for home care agencies, for the patients and for their staff. And we've done many other corporate events in terms of people needing for photo shoots for that as well. Additionally, we are open to doing events for people making simchas, parties, and they want to make sure that their guests are safe and healthy. We do that too. We have the equipment, we have the staff. I'm very proud of how my staff has performed over the last 6-7 months under very, very challenging times. Common Health has been here and we will be here for the community. And it is our pleasure and our privilege to be partnering with Emet on this evening's lecture.
Happy Chanukah to one and all. I am so thrilled and privileged to be here with all of you learning Torah together during this Festival of Lights. You know, when I think of the special work of the extraordinary Emet organization, the work led by my dear friend Rabbi Rottenberg and his dedicated staff of teachers and mentors and lovers of the Jewish people, it reminds me of that special insight. I recently shared it. I heard it from the late British Chief Rabbi, Jonathan Sacks, who passed away just last month. There is a fascinating and ancient debate in the Talmud, in Tractate Shabbos, page 22. It's a very simple question. Am I allowed to use a Chanukah candle in order to light another Chanukah candle? Now, usually we use the shamash. We take a foreign candle, a stranger, and we use that to kindle all of the flames. But what happens if I don't have a shamash? Can I use one Chanukah candle that's burning to light the other candles? Of course, there is an argument about it. It's an argument between two of the greatest Talmudic sages of the 3rd century, Rav and Shmuel. Rav says, Ein madlikin min ner l'ner. You're not allowed to use one Chanukah candle to light other candles. Shmuel says, it's permissible, it's fine. The logic, Rav says, akhushe mitzvah. If I use an existing Chanukah candle to light another candle, I may be diminishing of the first candle. Some of the oil can spill, some of the wax can get lost. You're diminishing the first flame, the Chanukah mitzvah flame. That's inappropriate. Shmuel disagrees. He says it's fine. But what is the logic behind Shmuel? Why doesn't he agree with Rav? What is more, there's a very interesting Talmudic principle that in most issues of Jewish law, when there was a debate between Rav and Shmuel, the verdict follows the position of Rav. There are 3 exceptions. One of them is Chanukah. Jewish law dictates that in this case, the verdict follows Shmuel. Jewish law says you could use a Chanukah flame to light another flame. Why? The understanding of this ancient Talmudic debate can be clearly seen in today's Jewish world. Take 2 Jews, they are both burning, they are both on fire. Both of their Jewish flames are lit. They are deeply passionate about Judaism, committed to Jewish faith, inspired by their religion. But they have 2 different views. The first one says, I must look out from my own flame. You cannot ask of me to go light other flames that are unlit. You know why? Akhushe mitzvah. That may diminish my Judaism. That may weaken my connection with spirituality. That may ultimately diminish my holiness. I must remain in my own cocoon to look after my own light and the light of the people who are very close to me. Now, Rav was a great spiritual giant, but Jewish law, in this case, embraced the vision of Shmuel. And you know what Shmuel says? Shmuel says, When you take your light and you use it to set another Jewish soul on fire, your flame doesn't get diminished. Your flame grows stronger and stronger. When you dedicate time and space and energy to ignite the soul of other people, to inspire their hearts, to broaden their Jewish horizons, to inculcate them with a deeper sense of purpose, meaning, love, hope, to make them appreciate the infinite, priceless value of their heritage, their faith, and their own inner reservoirs of spirituality, your light doesn't get diminished. Your light continues to grow and grow. From 1 comes 2, and from 2 comes 4, and from 4 comes 8, until we flood the entire world with light. I think this is one of the greatest commentaries for the special work of Emet. People, women and men, dedicated to ignite other flames, realizing that our greatest power lay when we care for each other, when we're connected with each other, when we reach out to each other. And when if I have a flame burning in my soul, I do not want to only keep it in my home and in my soul. Rather, I want to utilize it to illuminate and to inspire others. Every Chanukah, I'm always inspired by that picture I saw a number of years ago. It made me so curious. And then I had the privilege of having created a relationship and correspondence with the grandchild of the person who took the photo. It's a photo that is surreal, it's unusual. When I saw it the first time, I was shocked. Take a look. A Chanukah menorah burning, and behind it, a large swastika. Who would take such a picture? Who would light a Chanukah menorah right in front of the symbol of the Nazi party? And then I learned the story. The photo was taken in Kiel, Germany, on the 8th night of Chanukah, 1932. The rabbi of Kiel, Germany was a man named Rabbi Akiva Baruch Posner. He was getting ready to light the menorah, the 8th night of Chanukah, in which we light all the 8 candles, and it happened to coincide with Shabbat. So of course, the home is more rushed because you got to get the candles lit and you have to get the Shabbos candles lit. So it was moments before sunset of Friday afternoon, Kiel, Germany, Chanukah 1932. Rabbi Posner set up the menorah on his windowsill as he lit all of the 8 candles across the street with the headquarters of the Gestapo, with a large Nazi swastika. So in the background of the menorah, you have this draped flag of the Nazi party. Rachel Posner, Rebbetzin Posner, the wife of Rabbi Akiva Baruch Posner, is getting ready for Shabbos, but she observes how surreal this scene is. In the background, the swastika, and on the windowsill of her home, the Chanukah candles. And she decides she must immortalize this moment. And she goes and she fetches her camera and she takes a photograph. This is the photograph you're seeing. When she prints the photograph, she writes something on the other side of the picture in German. This is what she writes. I'll translate it into English. Judah will die. Thus says the flag. Judah will live forever. Thus say the Chanukah lights. Little did she realize how powerful, how tragically accurate her words would be. The Posner family managed to escape Germany in 1934. She, her husband, their 3 children, they made it to Israel. In fact, most or all of the community of Kiel, Germany was saved. But over the next 10 years, the flame of the Jewish people would come so close to being extinguished. Yes, death to the Jews, that flag exclaimed and tried to execute over the next decade. Remember, only a little while later, after this photograph was taken, Adolf Hitler, Yamach Shemai, January 1933, was elected as the Führer, as the Chancellor of Germany. 75 years have passed since the end of the Second World War. That flag that exclaimed, "Death to the Jews," thank God, has been removed from the consciousness of history, besides in the minds of some deranged and dangerous anti-Semites who still yearn and crave for our destruction. But every single year, right before Chanukah, the grandchild of Rabbi Akiva and Rebbetzin Rachel Posner, Yehudaman, my friend Yehudaman Sabach, borrows this menorah, this very menorah that stood on the windowsill of his grandparents' home in Kiel. He borrows it from the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, Yad Vashem. He brings it to his home in Haifa as he stands with his children and grandchildren and lights the candles in the same menorah that his grandfather used in Germany back in 1932. And as they sing the beautiful songs of Chanukah, Ma'oser Yeshuati, he shows the entire family the picture that his grandmother took so many years ago and what she wrote on the other side of that photograph. And he asks them the question we must all ask ourselves: who was right? Death to the Jews, thus the flag says. Judah will die, thus the flag says. Judah will live forever, thus the lights say. And indeed, during the original Chanukah, the flame of Judaism, the flame of the Jewish people came so close to being extinguished. The Hashmonaim rose up in a guerrilla war, which was super rational. It didn't make sense. But they fought, and they defeated the Greeks. And it wasn't only the Syrian Greeks they had to defeat. This was sadly a war among the Jewish people themselves. Most of the Jews were Hellenized. Most of the Jews at the time embraced the decrees of Antiochus. And even though he tortured mothers who circumcised their children, who gave their children a bris, he barbarically mutilated and murdered Jews who had the audacity to violate his commandments prohibiting all practices of Judaism at the pain of death. Jews assisted him in erecting a statue of Zeus in the temple and sacrificing pigs to pagan gods in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple. Sadly, Jews looked the other way when he took Hannah and her 7 children and murdered them because they refused to bow down to idolatry. Nonetheless, so many Jews were enthralled by what seemed like as progress and open-mindedness and the Greek focus on human power and prowess, the human body, the greatest athlete, and the human mind, the great philosopher. These were the crowns of creation. For the Jews, for so many Jews, this seemed so enthralling. This was the future. And they were hypnotized by that vision, even if it meant bidding farewell to their deepest values, to their deepest faith, to their God, to their ancestors, to their history, to their own deepest truths. But there was a small group, a small band of Hashmonaim who understood that goodness can be eclipsed but never obliterated. That the inner jug of oil, that little jug of oil, will remain eternal. They understood that goodness, holiness, divinity, infinity, morality, Torah, mitzvahs may be threatened. And the challenges may be daunting, but the flame of hope is never extinguished. Truth will ultimately prevail. Reality will ultimately prevail. That is its nature, because it's real. Light will dispel darkness. Clarity will defeat confusion. Truth will ultimately triumph over falsehood, because reality originates in truth. You can eclipse the truth, you can repress the truth, you can run away from the truth, you can deny the truth in your own soul. You can knock it down, you can make believe it doesn't exist. But it will emerge. And just like oil, even if you mix it with many other liquids, at some point it's going to rise to the top. It will not forever remain assimilated and mixed and forfeit its identity. This is what the Hashmonaim understood. They understood that there are certain truths about reality that you cannot repress and keep them down. They're going to float back to the surface. And this is what they fought for, and they were successful. And 2,200 years later, we still have the Hashmonaim. We still have those people who hold on to that flame and who will not let go of it. And even when there seems to be confusion and darkness and uncertainty and trauma and fear and insecurity and ambivalence and people who are very confused and overwhelmed by their own stress and by the stress around of them, these Hashmonaim know that their job is to kindle every day a flame of faith and hope and resilience and wisdom and authenticity, the flame of Torah, the flame of Yiddishkeit, the flame of mitzvahs, the flame of truth, and to kindle other flames, all waiting to be ignited, to be inspired. There's an old anecdote about a lover of antiques who threw a Chanukah party. And he invited his family and friends, and people were sitting around, and he would always go to auctions and buy these most ancient items, from the days of yore. And he points to his guests and he says, "You see this menorah? This menorah was used in Italy 500 years ago. And you see this menorah? This menorah was smuggled out of the Warsaw Ghetto during the Second World War. You see this oil? This oil dates back to Israel, you know how long. And you see this dreidel? This dreidel is more than a century old. I got it from Galicia, from Eastern Poland." And he goes through every single item there on the table and he tells them how old it is. This is 100 years old, this is 200 years old, this is 300 years old. And there's a Jew there who's busy biting into a donut. And he says, "Sir, and how old are the donuts?" I don't know how that compliment was registered by the boss. We like donuts to be fresh, we like latkes to be fresh, but as we eat those donuts and latkes, it's good to recall that they're telling a story that is literally thousands of years old and never died, never will die. There was once a teacher who wanted to share this message with his students. So he had them all build a model, a cardboard model of the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple in Jerusalem where the Chanukah miracle happened. And they did it. They put in effort, arts and crafts, and they constructed this lovely model. They finished and he said, "And now, let's sing a Chanukah song." And they all sang a Chanukah song. And they danced and they cheered. It was beautiful. And then he said, "I want you all to destroy the cardboard model of the Holy Temple." Oh, that was exciting. They got matches, you give kids matches, and they put them on fire, and they made a fire, and the model was burnt. And then he says, "Boys, girls, I want you to destroy the song that we just sang." They said, "Teacher, how do we do that? How do we destroy the song that we just sang?" He said, "You tell me." He said, "We can't." He looked at them and he said, "And now you'll understand something very curious about Chanukah. If I had to ask you, what should have been the main celebration of the Chanukah holiday, what would you say?" I would say the military victory of the Hashmonaim against the Syrian Greeks. This was a unique, unprecedented victory, as we say in the prayers of Chanukah. You have surrendered the strong in the hands of the weak. The few have triumphed over the many. You're talking about a little group. It started off with 5 brothers. It grew to another few hundred, maybe at most a few thousand. Jews fighting, the mightiest army of the time, tens of thousands of Syrian Greek troops. There was absolutely no possibility for them to win. And yet, after a few years, they managed to drive out the Syrian Greeks from Jerusalem, rededicate the temple, reestablish Jewish life, reestablish religious liberty. If not for the Hashmonaim, there would be no memory of the Jewish people or of Judaism. This was a historical, unique achievement. By the way, there would be no Christianity, no Islam. The other monotheistic faith wouldn't either be here, because Chanukah happened approximately 150 years before the genesis of Christianity. It happened around 200 years before the destruction of the Second Temple. So this was a unique moment in history, this victory, the fact that they won. And yet, the Talmud chooses to focus on one individual detail, which, even though it was miraculous and inspiring, doesn't seem to be so consequential and so important. And that is that they wanted to light the menorah, and they only had oil for one night, and the oil lasted for 8 nights, and therefore we celebrate Chanukah by lighting the menorah for 8 nights. 1 second, but even if that miracle wouldn't have happened and the menorah would not burn for 8 nights, the victory would have still been extraordinary. In fact, if you look at the book of the Maccabees, which records the Chanukah history, that is the main focus of the holiday, the victory of the Hashmonai family against the Syrian Greeks' troops and the establishment of religious liberty. When you look at the Talmud, which was written after the destruction of the Second Temple, a few hundred years, the Second Temple was destroyed in 70, the Babylonian Talmud was composed in the 5th century. There the focus is very different. The Talmud in Tractate Shabbos, page 21b, says, my Chanukah, why do we celebrate Chanukah? Because when the Hashmonaim defeated the Greeks and they came to the temple, they couldn't find any oil, and they found 1 jug of oil, and it burned for 8 days. Why did that become the focus of the story? The teacher explained to his students, you see, look what you just did. The cardboard model of the temple, you burnt, you can destroy it. The song, you could not obliterate. The military victory of Chanukah could be reversed. It was reversed. 100 years after the Hashmonaim came into power, ultimately, there was strife and civil war and terrible contention and discord. And then Rome ultimately took over Judea, and this led to the destruction of the Second Temple and the long exile of the Jewish people subsequent to that. So if Chanukah would have just been based on the fact, we won the war, we liberated Jerusalem, now let's go eat, let's go celebrate, the holiday of Chanukah would have come to an end when the Jewish people lost the war, were defeated, were exiled, were dispersed. There was no temple anymore, there was no menorah, and yet Chanukah persisted. Why? And that's where the Talmud tells us the military victory is tremendous, and we're so grateful for it. And we thank God for it every Chanukah. It was an incredible moment. But you know what the real achievement of Chanukah was? It managed to ignite the flame in the human heart. It managed to rekindle the spark of hope and faith and resilience and commitment in the Jewish soul. It managed to inspire the Jewish people to accept upon themselves once again their covenant with the Creator of the world, to change the world, to light up the world with the flame of morality, with the flame of values, with the flame of truth, with our commitment to education, to love, to charity, to faith, to transforming the landscape of planet Earth, l'sakein olam b'malchus shin daled yud, to repair our world under the sovereignty of God, a commitment to build homes that are infused with joy, and infused with faith, and infused with holiness, and infused with idealism, and infused with the celebration of mitzvahs, of Yiddishkeit, and infused with the study of Torah, and infused with charity, and infused with prayer. That is what Chanukah accomplished. And that could not be destroyed even when the flames burnt not just the model of the Holy Temple, but the Holy Temple itself. The song of the heart that Chanukah ignited in the Jewish psyche continues to resonate in our souls more than 2,000 years later. And you know, friends, I think there is also a very personal message for each and every one of us tonight. And that is, in your life, in my life, we each have to choose whether I could become a source of light to light up others. It's so easy in our world to become victims. We just become victims of our circumstances, victims of our own inner wounds and scars and traumas, victims of our past, victims of our present, victims of our environment, victims of situations that may be challenging and difficult. And indeed, some of us have grown up with traumas that have wounded us deeply. Some of us do have to confront various ghosts and demons and skeletons. And yet Chanukah teaches us something very powerful. And that is that every single moment of my life, I can make a choice. Either I'm going to become a source of light or a source of darkness, a source of confusion or a source of clarity. Either I'm going to be part of the problem or I'm going to be part of the solution. There's no other choice. In life, every single day, you choose either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Which part? Which team do you want to be part of? There are problems everywhere. There are problems inside of me. There are problems outside of me. There are problems in our society, in our nation, in our world. But I can be part of the problem or I can be part of the solution. And Chanukah tells me, become a menorah. When people see you in the store, in the supermarket, in the street, in the office, in the synagogue, in school, in your workplace, in your home, they could look at you and see just a person who's looking for validation and love and attention like the rest of us. Or they could see you as a person, yes, who is looking for love and validation and attention, but also a person who is ready to be a source of love and a source of light and a source of inspiration. And don't say, I am different, I am messed up, I am not capable, I am already an old man, an old woman, I am incompetent, I am a nerd, I am a loser. You don't know who I am. You have that little jug of oil that could never be tarnished and contaminated. It remains unscathed and wholesome because it is rooted in divine infinity. And I'm going to finally share with you a lovely insight of one of the greatest Hasidic masters, known as the Sfas Emes. Sfas Emes was a Jew named Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib Alter. He was the second Ger Rebbe, the second spiritual master of the Hasidic dynasty known as Ger. He passed away in the winter of 1905 in the city of Ger, not far from Warsaw in Poland. And in his commentary on Chumash, on Sfas Emes, on that story that is being read in the Jewish world during these weeks, during the time of Chanukah, he has an extraordinary commentary on one of those fateful verses. You remember Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery, and he ends up in the home of this man named Potiphar. He's so successful there. His master loves him, and he makes him really, the chief of staff running his entire estate. But then comes the next part of the story. Potiphar's wife, his master's wife, loves Joseph. Joseph is beautiful and handsome and attractive, and she tries to entice him and persuade him to engage in a promiscuous relationship. And Joseph refuses. And the Torah describes how she did not stop. Every single day she nudged him, she pleaded with him, she nagged him. She did whatever she can to persuade him to engage in this immoral relationship. The Torah describes one scene when Joseph refuses. He insists that he cannot do it. And he gives her an explanation. He tells her why he cannot possibly fulfill her desire. And he says, you have to understand, my master, your husband, doesn't know anything that's happening in this home. Everything that's happening in this home, he has surrendered to my control. I am the sole boss here. He has given me the authority over everything. Einenu gadol babayis hazeh mimeni. There is nobody in this estate who is greater than I am, who has more power than I am. There's only one thing that he did not allow me to lay my hands on. There's only one thing I have no access to, and that is you, because you are his wife. How do you expect of me, how do you expect of me to engage in such an immoral, broken, and destructive act? And she doesn't stop. She continues. And ultimately she accuses him of violating her, and he's plunged into prison where he would remain for 12 years until he'd be emancipated and ultimately become the prime minister of Egypt, and the rest is history, as they say. But let's focus on one element. He's building up this dramatic answer of why he can't sin. Now, it's wonderful words he's saying. He's saying basically, my boss trusts me. He's given me his home. He's entrusted me with his estate. He's entrusted me with his bank accounts. I'm the one who manages everything. Now you want me to take this trust and betray it. There's one thing he didn't give me, his wife. Okay, wonderful, wonderful argument. But 1 second. Let's say Joseph was just a simple slave who owned nothing in the house, who ran nothing in the house. Let's say he was just a regular guy. The real issue here is when a woman is married to a man, engaging in a relationship with this woman is a violation of one of the basic moral codes of civilization and society. Judaism known as one of the 7 Noahide laws, in which Adam was already commanded. V'davag bi'ishto v'lo ba'eshes chaveiro, the Talmud says in Sanhedrin. This is one of the basic laws of civilization. No difference if I'm rich or I'm poor, if I'm a slave or I'm a master, if my owner trusts me or doesn't trust me, you are married. That's the real basic thing here. Joseph builds up this whole beautiful argument. I mean, it's just an extra argument. You're really betraying his trust. But even if he didn't, even if you were a stranger and he never trusted you with anything, you're not allowed to cheat with his spouse. Come on. And the spouse is not allowed to cheat with somebody else. Is this really the main crux of the argument? The Sfas Emes says something marvelous. He says Joseph was not only talking to her, he was also talking to himself. And he was not only referring to things on an earthly level, he was also referring to things on a much deeper level. When he says, my master knows nothing that is happening in this home, there's nobody greater in this home. He has given me everything. He has allowed me to do everything. Everything. He's given me such authority. But there's one thing that he asks of me. And what does he ask of me? He asks of me to be loyal to him, not to betray him. How can I betray him? Says the Sfas Emes, what Joseph was discussing was not just his master Potiphar. He was also discussing the ultimate master of the world, God. He says, let's understand this. This whole estate is his. The whole world is his. L'Hashem haaretz u'mlaya. He runs everything. He runs everything. It's his home. It's his enterprise. It's his resources. I don't own anything. I didn't make it. I couldn't make it. I didn't fashion it. I didn't design it. I didn't create its mechanisms. It's all run by God, who created it, controls it, supervises it. Who allowed the one cell with which human life begins to develop into 70 trillion cells operating in the most synchronized, beautiful, and organized manner, moment by moment, to create the miracle of human life. Who created the processes of photosynthesis in a tree, that unique ability to transform sunlight into glucose, and the other thousands and thousands of miracles of nature that allow you to take a seed, plant it into the earth, and between soil and oxygen and water and sunlight, suddenly I'm eating a plum, and I'm eating watermelon, and I'm eating a piece of challah, or a piece of babka, or a latke on Chanukah, or a donut on Chanukah. Suddenly I'm eating a peach, or a cucumber, or a tomato, or a potato. How did that exactly happen? From the soil, and the water, and the sunlight, and the air. We take these things for granted, but don't take this for granted. Who allows the machinery of life to work? Do you know the atomic structure of every single thing we call matter? Every single atom working in perfect harmony with the center of the atom, the electron, revolving around the nucleus of the atom. And how about the subatomic particles? and all of the atoms working together in perfect harmony, and you're dealing here with numbers that are beyond what the human mouth can articulate, just the amount of atoms in one drop of water. And do you know the miracle of one single cell in a living organism? And how about the DNA? If spread out as a scroll, can fill the height of the Empire State Building, and probably more than once, or 2 times, or 3 times. And the processes of lightning, which allows the nitrogen, which can't merge with the oxygen, to be absorbed in the rain and in the soil so it can become part of our diet, so it can produce amino acid. And the processes of the winds that allow the clouds to be scattered and dispersed, so that when the sun acts like a pump and draws the water upwards, and if there wouldn't be winds that would scatter the clouds, the water would fall right back into the oceans, and the rest of Earth would remain barren desert, and everything working in perfect symmetry and harmony to allow for life on our planet and to allow for the existence of the cosmos. And we can discuss this for approximately 90 years and still not scratch the surface of the magic that exists in one bee dance, or in the productivity of a single ant, a flake of snow, a droplet of rain, a beating heart, a blade of grass, the largest or smallest galaxy or star. Joseph says, this is all his, and he does it all. Do I even know what's happening inside of me? Am I the one who commands hundreds of billions of white blood cells to act like a police force and survey and control my body 24 hours a day, to stand guard against any foreign invader? And when there is a foreign invader, as a virus or bacteria, fungi, and infection, they come for an attack? Do I even know what's going on? Does anybody know what's going on? Who designed all of this? And who designed the 9 systems within my biological framework? Who? The respiratory system and the urinary system and digestive system, etc. Circulatory system? What about that heart pumping blood? And how many highways and arteries? 60,000 miles. Joseph says, he does it. We take it for granted. But then, this God asks of me one thing. There's one arena in which God says, I will abstain. Hakol b'dei shamayim chutz miyiras shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven besides the fear of heaven. There's one arena of life where God says, it's up to you. You have to make moral choices. You're the one who has to choose whether you're going to be a source of light or a source of darkness, whether you're going to live a life aligned with your infinity, or you're going to live a life aligned with your trauma. Are you going to live a life that expresses your truest, deepest self, your truest, deepest values as a chelik elokam mal, as a soul that embodies the light of God? Or am I going to reduce myself to pettiness and smallness and surrender to mediocrity and allow anger, insecurity, fear, traumas, wounds, and deep struggles to overpower me and to ultimately dictate what I'm going to do? God, who owns everything, has given over this home, has given over this life to me. And he told me, I ask of you one thing. I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you a world that I created and it's at your disposal. I'm asking you one thing. Don't touch my wife. I'm asking you to abstain from that which is immoral, which is forbidden, even if it's tempting. Joseph says to the wife of Potiphar, how can I violate that? Do you understand what's at stake here? The whole world is God. But when it comes to the moral questions of life, he gave it over to me. And he says, and I'm trusting you with this responsibility. This is what I need from you. I will do everything else, but this I need from you. You're the only one who can do it. I can't betray this. The stakes are too high. The responsibility is too deep. The grandeur is too profound. And the Sfas Emes says he's trying to convince her too. He hopes to help her understand. And he even adds that the sages say that she actually did it for the sake of heaven. She wanted to be with him for the sake of heaven. And he says maybe after this conversation, there was something in her that was triggered and she wanted to be with him because she realized how righteous she was, even though it didn't begin that way. And ultimately, he would end up being with her daughter. He would marry her daughter. So my deepest friends, at this time of Chanukah, we recall that even though we don't master the world, we're not masters of the world, but we are the partners of God in repairing the world. We are the partners of God in the work of creation. We are empowered and invigorated to make a difference. Every single day you can choose to say, I will become a source of light, of love, of hope, of healing, of truth, of inspiration. Thank you. Happy Chanukah.